Economics is the study of markets. And well, sociology also involves the study of markets. Many disciplines take an eye on them. It's important to remember that all a market is a group of like transactions. And all a transaction is a buyer and seller getting together. A buyer saying, I want that. A seller saying, I don't want it as much as you want it because the price you're willing to give me is higher than the price that I need to keep it. And that's the nature of human commerce going all the way back to the earliest days of human organizing. And understanding that all a market is an aggregation of people selling and buying similar things. And that our models of markets are just that. They're models. Supply and demand don't exist. They're a model of what we see in everyday life that help us understand everyday life when we aggregate all those buyer and seller transactions together. And helping students understand how human society functions, how it naturally self-organizes, which is what a market is what a free market economy is. Because even in the socialist economies and the communists, those markets existed. They maybe weren't tracked officially, but they were there and they were operating. And so when I think about how we bring that into education, it's how do we help students understand how humans organize, how humans interact and bring value to each other. I love, Adam Smith calls it about our propensity to truck. Now obviously, I never thought of that as a verb and had meaning back then, but I love that phrase now. Our propensity to truck is what makes us different from the animals. Our propensity to engage in transactions of me to sell you something and you to buy it, so that I don't, you'll do the farming and I'll do the sewing, and by having this propensity to truck, we'll each have more well-being in our lives. It's a very simple principle. And I sometimes think that when we use words like markets and networks things, we create an abstraction of reality. These are models of how we exist. Because I look out at the world and I see what creates wealth. And business, by the way, for me is organizations and markets, which are both important parts of it. And it's organizations operating as actors in markets. And I look out at the world and I watch, it's not the government that's creating jobs, it's not the governance that's creating innovation, it's not the church that's doing it, it's not, you can get something done so much faster with a for-profit business than you can with a not-for-profit or a government or a religious-based business or even an NGO. And you can move jobs and move wealth and solve problems so much faster. It's pretty obvious it's the dominant social institution. Now, do I like that every day? No, because sometimes as it's become the dominant social institution, we've allowed market-based logics to dominate our thinking. Part of how did 2008 occur, how did all your classmates get lured, as you talked about, to Wall Street is because money has become even more motivating to us in the age of the business as the dominant social institution. And money is only a metric. Money is only one place of value in life. And if there's a sort of a challenge that we're going to have if we're going to re-equilibrate, it's going to be, as a human on a psyche level, understanding how much business has come to dominate and homogenize and control culture in some cases, and making conscious decisions about where we're going to let that happen and where we're not. Right now, we're dealing with the unintended consequences of business emerging as the dominant social institution. And we're beginning to have dialogues about how do we push that monetary metric back a little to let other values on the table as a society, both nationally and globally. Markets aren't fair or unfair. Markets create wealth and they're incredibly efficient at allocating goods and resources and creating surplus for society that makes people better off. But markets have nothing to do with how that well-being gets allocated across members of society. And you can't argue they're fair or unfair. They're agnostic. They're amoral, not immoral, amoral. It's we as human beings who get to decide how much each person should be entitled to on a moral and values-based level. And I personally am somebody who believes the fact that 1 billion out of the 6 billion of us on the planet live on less than $1 a day isn't fair. And I don't believe that markets can solve it. I do believe they can create more wealth to spread to help solve it. But if we just allow markets unchecked and somehow argue that will take care of it, I've seen no data to indicate that markets will know, because they aren't knowing, they're allocating. They're generative, not loving.